Hi. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, good afternoon, sir.
Hi.
Good afternoon. Hello.
Okay. So can you see the share screen there? Okay, so here's your paper. And so we were recording this, and so I'll send you the link in case you want to watch it again. So, all right, so you're right. There are many major obstacles to developing a primary European identity. First, a knowledge gap exists or predominant. So let me say this again because I might make some more changes. One of my tasks here is to help you develop your English even further than it already is, the great skill it already is. And so I don't want to just typically tell you how I would state something. I want the student to think about it and choose. So either one of when I make a suggestion like this, I let you, choose. Either one's okay though. There are many major obstacles developing a primary European identity. First, the knowledge gap exists or predominates within the European Union. So which one of those do you prefer? Either one's okay. Exists or predominates?
Um, yeah, I think easiest.
Okay, well, I'll let you choose. Like I said, I want you to think about it and choose it, right? Let me tell you, because that way, if you feel like it's your choice, then you're more likely to learn more. So let me just highlight that and let you fix that. A divide between citizens who are politically knowledgeable about what you and has achieved and done, about what you have achieved, and others who do not understand or misunderstand what you're doing. So, you don't need to put that. You can just put in Olson, page 190, that, page 170. Yeah, and, it comes before the period of in-text source citation. So there you go. Let me see, what else did I write here? Okay, and the upper classes, young and educated, think positively about the EU, yay! Whereas lower classes, old and undergraduate, tend not to, or more likely to think negatively. So again, let you choose whichever one you want. You can choose there. It has resulted in political polarization and an increase in the number of citizens who have skepticism about the European Union. If the polarization becomes becomes increasingly serious. I think that's what I would say, increasingly serious. You can never consolidate. Increasingly becomes increasingly or more. I'll let you choose. Either one's okay. Okay. The EU can consolidate the EU can never consolidate the European identity among the EU citizens. Okay. Yeah. Like I've been talking with some of the other students I have in the other classes, and we've got these Belgian students, in my foreign policy class. And I just talked with one student. He speaks 4 languages. He speaks English, Dutch, French, and German. Right? So, he's here studying in Korea too. So, he's one of these educated elite people. You might really love European integration. That's great. Globalization is great. You study in Korea 1 year, you get a job in Germany the next year, he marries a nice, Romanian girl the next year, they have kids, they get sent to international schools. Yeah. But, that's us. But the mass of the population, Korea is a different place. I understand Korea is the highlight of the example of globalization, right? Korea is all about globalization. 85% of Korean high school graduates, they go to college. Everybody's got to start studying English from the time that they're going into school. But America and many Europeans are not like that. I know many Italians who they've never studied a foreign language. My family comes from working class background in Italy, and they just they're not like the students I encounter here at Catholic University of Korea, right? And so those people are more likely, yeah, man, Europe's great, but what about the mass of the population that feels envious about, if you want a good quality life that you see on television, you see in entertainment media, you have to have a college degree, 4-year college degree, and you have to speak more than one language well. And so, yeah, what's going to happen in Europe? or is it going to be continually, as you highlight, polarizing, more and more polarized between those people that all into globalization and Europeanization and the mass of the population that views themselves as not being respected? That Germany is named Germany because Germany is for Germans, but a Muslim person who has got dark skin and is that person is not a German. And we're letting all these people who are not Germans into Germany. And that makes me mad because I don't like those people. And I'm not going to admit it, I don't like those people because I know I shouldn't say that. So if you ask me, why am I supporting the Alternative for Germany far-right party or Brexit? I'm not going to say it's because I don't like foreigners. I'm going to say something about how the European Union is controlling too much our life. That the European Union is keeping us from exploiting the full potential that we have to develop economically. And I might be honest and say, I don't like Europe because there's too many foreigners coming into my country. But if you ask me, if you're interviewing me for a public opinion survey from Harris or Gallup poll or some other company that does public opinion surveys, I might not admit, I might not even admit to myself why I really don't like European Union. And that's a bit of a challenge in terms of planning strategy for European integration, for Europe as a peace strategy, because globalization, interdependence is unavoidable, right? With the pandemic, we all know that if the pandemic continues in other parts of the world, there's going to be new variants of the virus that are going to develop, right? If it's circulating in Africa, it's not going to stay in Africa. And global climate change, right? If global climate change happens, it's going to impact all of us in different ways that we more or less understand. And the answer, or not understand, and the challenge that requires global coordination and cooperation. So understanding how you can control and manage globalization, the European Union is the best example of how you try to manage globalization on a regional level. Right, on a regional level. And it's the test case for not just Europe, but for the whole world. And you're seeing that now, right? You're seeing that now in terms of, for example, this effort to come up with one basic corporate taxation rate for all industrialized countries around the world in the OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, that organization that has Korea in it and China and all of these companies. Well, I don't think China's in it. Maybe it is. But I mean, Korea's in it, Japan's in it, and Europe is a core player in that because the European Union has 27 member states, industrialized member states. And so if Europe has to be part of that for this to work. And climate change also, Europe has to be part of that for coming up with a global answer to climate change. So if people like you and the Belgian students, yes, we love being part of this big debate and discussion about climate change and participating in a global career on an individual level in which I work in different countries and I'm working for human rights and sustainable development and climate protection, and that's great for us. But for them, one reaction of the mass of the public can be just to deny it, reject it, become more nationalistic out of fear and envy. So how do you deal with fear and envy? How do you deal with fear and envy and those groups and those elite political figures that exploit as political entrepreneurs this tendency towards fear and envy? And the Chinese say, well, we'll tell you how to exploit. You shut them down. That's why democracy really is not going to be effective in dealing with these challenges, because you get Trumps, you get Boris Johnsons in democracies. You need the Chinese model there's limits on how much we will allow people to exploit fear and insecurity for their own political objectives. We will limit that, at least domestically. And that means no, we're going to censor social media. We're going to put up the great firewall. You can't just say whatever you want on Facebook in China or the version of Facebook. Because otherwise you get Trumps and Johnsons. So which model is right? So I think that's what you're highlighting. The polarization is going to be, it seems like you're implying here that polarization is going to be an ever-present aspect of Europe. And that means there's never going to be a European national identity like there's an American national identity. Although maybe there was, because there is polarization in the United States between blacks and whites, Hispanics and whites. There's racial polarization, and sometimes it's kind of intense. But still, these people are American nationalists. What I'm telling you is there's not an easy answer to these questions. There's not a right or wrong answer to the Olson's, because this is taken from the Olson textbook. Right? It's a discussion question. And so I like what you're trying to go, and I'm trying to imagine, like, for example, what will happen if Marine Le Pen or somebody else wins the next election in France next year for president, a far right-wing person, like a French version of Donald Trump. Will they withdraw France from the European Union? No. Will they take France out of the euro? Hard to believe. Will they make hostility with Germany? It's hard to imagine them making a hostile relation with Germany and Italy. Maybe with Britain. I can imagine that with Britain. It's already started with Britain. So you go on here. Second, Europeans have a different history with each other. They do not know well another. Well, yeah, the elite do. Again, I come from working class background in Italy, my family, and those people, they don't know much about anything. They're just like Americans. They don't know much about Germany. They don't know much about France. They just don't. Even though they're part of Italy. People like you and me, yeah, the educated ones who speak foreign languages, but my relatives, except for my aunt, she speaks a little English, but nobody else does. Yeah, so again, I said, do not use contractions form of skywriting, or so I show you how you might want to rephrase it. You notice also, if you get rid of passive voice, that you'll use less words in your writing. And so that's always desirable. You always want to express your points in as few words as possible, because that's more clear and persuasive to the reader.
Okay.
So the EU has survived, the EU has persevered through, financial crisis. Try to develop them by listening to, okay. However, the U.S. should try to integrate them by listening to public opinion directly and make the U.S. feel develop sense of belonging. So how do you do that? How do you know what European public opinion is? Public opinion surveys? Elections? It seems what the European leaders have decided, that public opinion is represented through the European Parliament and the national governments, and those are elected. No more referendums. No more voting in France on whether or not to approve a new treaty. No more voting on any country through a popular direct election as whether or not to ratify a treaty. The last time was in 2009, when finally Ireland voted in a referendum to ratify the Treaty of Lisbon 12 years ago. And then it came into effect right at the end of 2009, after they finally got the Irish to approve it in a vote. But ever since then, Meanwhile, the European Union has become more and more powerful, with the European Central Bank becoming this really powerful, important actor. There was just something again today that the European Central Bank is going to buy more Euro bonds, that this is really developing. They've come up with a European Stability Facility, sort of like a European IMF. And they've done all of this without referendums. They've come up with the Next Generation program for COVID pandemic relief, with 800 billion euros. All of this has been done without any kind of direct vote by the people of Germany or Ireland or France. No more of that. It's all done through the European Council, with the European Parliament, and the elections through the national governments. That's it. And that's what they've decided European public opinion is represented by. And that's a choice, because after what happened with the Brexit vote, if you have something like that in France, we saw what happened in 2004. They voted down the Constitution, the draft Constitution. France, right? One of the core members of the European Union. So this is, an elite-driven project, and this is, elites driving this, and this is always part of the criticism of Europe. But this is a project that elite people get really excited about, not, working class people, and that might be true. But in Europe, people are more willing to follow the elite than they are in the United States. The problem in Britain is that the elite is more Eurosceptic than anywhere else in Europe. The British elite, not the British mass public, the British elite has always been more Eurosceptic than the German elite or the French elite or the Italian elite, even the Polish elite, because of their different history. Yeah, so what, I highlight this, the textbook is, interestingly, it's already out of date, because, the writer was just, the COVID pandemic was just starting when that book was published, was finished. And so you see all of this, amazing developments. I mean, with the Euro bonds, and even like I told you today, they're already talking about this Euro bond issue. Angela Merkel, when she's still the prime minister of Germany, she said this is a one-off time. We're going to just do this one time. We're going to sell Euro bonds to fund the COVID-19 pandemic recovery program. This next generation, we're going to do it once. She just said that a couple weeks ago. Now I read today, the European Central Bank is going to do it again. Just today. I can show you the news report, right? And I was going to talk about it in class when we get back to class on next week. European Central Bank considers boosting purchase of EU recovery fund debt. So it's not going to be just one time. It's going to become regular procedure, like the way Korea sells bonds on the financial markets, or the United States, or Germany, or Italy, or France. Europe's going to do it not just once, over and over and over again. This is just from today. Like, wow. And so, again, how do you know if Europe exists? The people buying those bonds, as far as they're concerned, Europe exists. They're willing to invest their money in buying those bonds. They'll buy the bonds. They'll invest their money. They expect to get that money back plus interest. So, yeah, I know financial investors, those are part of the elite. I know they're part of the elite, but as far as the elite is concerned, Europe exists in the form of the European Union, because they will invest hundreds of billions of dollars in it as a safe investment. They're saying it's going to be even more, it's in this news report, that it's going to be even as safe, if not more safe, as an investment than German bonds. I mean, and this is all after the book was published. Like, wow. Yeah. I mean, she just said that. I mean, it was just in a news report like a month ago. Angela Merkel said this is a one-time event. No, it's not going to be just a one-time. And of course, we knew it wasn't going to be a one-time event because once you do it once, it becomes really appealing to do it again and again and again. Politically, it's feasible. People get their interest vested in it. So is Europe being constructed? Is this how you construct a European primary identity that overcomes German, Italian, French? You'd first do it through the elite. And then, everybody comes around, if you say, I'm not saying it's going to happen today, and it's not going to happen tomorrow, but like, let's say 100 years from now, in the year 2121, what will have happened in Europe? If we're still here, there's not been a nuclear war, or there hasn't been the end of civilization. All of these people are moving all over Europe. So people are marrying each other. Like, for example, myself, right? My dad came from Italy to the United States. Working class guy, met his mom, met my mom, they got married. She's English, she's not at all Italian. They have me and have we have children. Now, I've got a global career. I live in Korea, I live in Bulgaria. My brother, wasn't so good in school, but he's still got an international career. He works for a French company. But that bought his company, but he's still internationally oriented. My sister, she works for the state of Ohio. None of them speak foreign languages, but they're all, well. So that's our family. What will be like in 100 years from now in Europe? These people mixing, intermarrying, having children, grandchildren. Will this elite identity trickle down to the mass? It seems to me that one way by which you have to, if you're really serious about this, you have to require your children to study foreign languages. Like they do in Korea, everybody's got to start studying English when they enter school. In Europe, it's supposed to be everybody's got to start studying foreign languages when they enter school. In America, they still don't do that. It's not a requirement. You have to study Spanish or French or Chinese or Russian. You don't have to do it. If you want to, you can, but you don't have to, the way you do in Korea. Or I think in the way you have to do in Europe too. And that doesn't mean everybody's successful at it, but they have to try in Korea and in US. And in Europe. So these are ultimately elite-driven projects, maybe everywhere. Whether it be creating South Korea was an elite-driven project, creating North Korea was an elite-driven project, creating any state is an elite-driven project. Ultimately, there's limits to how much you can construct. The Soviet Union, they tried to construct the Soviet Union and it didn't work. Soviet identity did not overcome Russian, Ukrainian, Lithuanian, Estonian, Latvian identity. Yugoslavia, they tried to create a Yugoslav identity. It didn't work. They were not able to overcome Serbian, Croatian, Slovenian identities, but that was through coercion, violence, killing the elite. Europe's still using these democratic procedures to co-opt people. That's the key, to co-opt people. To co-opt them through their belief in their free will. Okay, do you have any questions? Sally?
Sorry, yes.
Do you have any questions?
No, I have to check your modified version. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then I go on here. Europe can be more like the US, where an overarching American identity trump regional identity. Yeah, I mean, the Americans, they had to fight a civil war to do that. It killed a lot of people 150 years ago. You don't want no more war in Europe. You don't want any more wars, right? So maybe
Yeah.
Europe already fought it. I mean, but you still have polarization. I mean, this polarization that produced Donald Trump between whites and blacks and Hispanics and whites, not all whites, not all Hispanic, but enough, still produces, intense polarization. That might be a way by which to understand that there'll be this Europe, polarized Europe, where, you're going to still have conflicts between Italians and Germans and French, but at the same time, there will be this European identity, just like you might say pan-Islamic identity among all Muslims. Even if there's a pan-Islamic nationalism between, Iranians and Arabs and Pakistanis and still they also have conflicts among themselves, and they can be intense and violent. And maybe you might have that among Europe as well. A European identity that emerges, that becomes real and substantive, even as you have polarization still among Italians and Germans and French and Greeks and Bulgarians. It's like a secular pan-Europe identity versus in comparison with pan-Islamic identity. And the question is, how much of that is Christian based, right? I mean, in that draft constitution that the French didn't approve, the Pope in Rome really pushed to have some kind of Christian reference in that draft constitution. Because, when you think of Europe, you often think about the Vatican, the Pope, right?
Yeah.
But, Europe, no, we don't want that, because there's a lot of Muslims in Europe, Albania and Bosnia, and more coming in now from Middle East. So no reference to Christianity. And we'll still talk to the Pope, but we're not going to put that in any European Union documents. Okay, so let me go ahead and send that to you. And again, I mean, one of the reasons why I'm grateful about doing these conferences is because I get to talk more, and because I'm talking more, I get to think through some things that I need to think through if I'm going to, be productive as a researcher. So let me go back to the paper there, and go like that, and send that to you. Okay.
Professor, sorry for disturbing. I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So should I modify my draft once again, one more time?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can revise it in terms of the grammar and the suggestions I made, and then send it to me. The final draft comes on the end of, what did I say, October 30th is the deadline for the second draft, and I'll put a grade on that draft. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so let me send it to you. Okay, and I will send you the link for the recording later. Okay.